Shwmae pawb. Hello everybody. Welcome. Croeso to my wild Welsh garden. Just by way of explanation for those of you who've just joined me over the past few weeks, my name's Isabel and I live here at the top of the Swansea Valley in South Wales in the UK. I've been here about 7 years. I live on my own, and what I'm trying to do is to make my garden as beneficial for wildlife as possible. And this is just in response to the fact that wildlife all over the world, but particularly in the UK and particularly in Wales, is just undergoing catastrophic decline. And I thought, well, I can't do much, but I do have a garden and I can make it as good for wildlife as I possibly can. So that's what I'm doing, and I'm sharing it with anybody who wants to watch on YouTube. I've had my channel for about 18 months now, and overall it's been a really positive and helpful and encouraging experience. I've met people from all over the world who are also wild gardeners or are thinking of becoming them or have become a little bit wilder. And yeah, I've loved sharing my garden with you, and I've loved hearing from you and hearing about what's happening in your gardens. But before we go out into the garden, I just wanted to share with you what happened to me yesterday. I clicked on a channel that YouTube suggested to me. And I was sorry that I did, really, because it was a chap who was talking about things that he didn't like about Chelsea Flower Show. Well, there's quite a few things that I don't like about Chelsea Flower Show as well, so I was quite interested to see. But yeah, then I was sorry. I had to write it down because he said that, he hated the trend for valuing weeds over horticultural plants. And he said it was beyond ridiculous. He said it's not gardening, it's the opposite. He said it's the absence of gardening. And he said something about being self-righteous, and something that I didn't get. With several bleeped out expletives, and he said he really hated it, and oh dear, yeah, I was quite shocked actually, not just at what he was saying, but that he was so angry. He sounded so angry, and so it was the sort of the strength of feeling. And then I started to feel sorry for him, because I thought, there's a whole dimension to gardening here and to his life that he is just completely unaware of. And that made me sad. But then I thought, well, he's obviously not the only one. There's a lot of people out there who feel the same. And that made me even sadder. So it was a bit of a shock, really. Quite a dollop of reality. The thing is, I do live in a little bit of a bubble up here. I don't have an awful lot to do with an awful lot of people, and I do tend to stick with the people that agree with me. Yes, at my time of life, I've definitely lived by the maxim of stick with the people that make you feel good. I mean, I knew there were people like him, but it did come as a bit of a shock to be sort of face to face with one. Not only the strength of feeling sort of anti wild gardening, using weeds in your garden, that's what he was talking about, whereas I would call them wildflowers or native plants. But the misunderstanding, really, that it's the absence of gardening, it's because it's absolutely not true. I do as much work now as I ever did as a conventional gardener. I just do different things in different ways at different times of the year. I just do things differently. So what I'm trying to do here is to make a garden that's beautiful for me, that I want to be in and that other people will want to spend time in. But it's also a space for nature to thrive in all her wild and wonderful beauty. And if you kind of agree with me, then please like the video, please subscribe to the channel, because it all helps to sort of get the word out there, and helps to redress the misunderstanding that there is about wild gardening and wildlife gardening. So in this video, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about native plants and non-native plants, living together, really. My friend Tracy, the wildlife gardener, has just made a video about exactly this in her garden, and I'll put a link in to that video. But it's all about non-native plants, cultivars, and native plants, weeds, living in harmony together in your garden and just making a beautiful space for you and a wonderful space for wildlife to live in. And this is a lovely shrub. The leaves are a beautiful dark sort of reddy brown colour. I'm afraid I don't know what it is. Somebody did tell me once, and of course I've forgotten. And I bought it in a car boot sale when I first came for about £1.50, I think. It has these lovely little clusters of pinky white flowers that the insects just love. I've seen my first red admiral butterfly on here this morning. So yeah, you don't need native plants to attract pollinators. But they do like the native plants too, like the Welsh poppy here. And the foxgloves. Or this red campion. Or this purple toad flax. Or on the ragged robin. Or this red clover. And here's a hoverfly on an oxeye daisy. I have a lot of geraniums in my garden. They're hardy geraniums, they're not pelargoniums. They look lovely, but the insects also enjoy them. But they're not native, they're all cultivars. So I suppose what I'm saying is that I'm not a purist. I'm like most pollinators, provided that the flower produces lots of pollen and nectar. I don't really care where it comes from. But what I want to be able to do is to cater for the larvae of these lovely butterflies. And the larvae of this butterfly, the red admiral, feeds on nettles. And the thing is, we can't rely on other people to have nettle patches for us. Because farmers come along and cut down their nettle patches, and so do local councils all the time. And then the caterpillars are gone, and then there's no lovely butterflies for us to have in our gardens. I've actually made a couple of attempts to establish a nettle patch in the garden. I planted a nettle down there, but it's not come to anything. But I do have nettles on what I call my over the road, which is this little bit of ground that I just leave for the wildlife. Rosa complicata has just started to come out. The flowers are just beautiful. And it attracts all sorts of insects. Like these amazing things. These are bee beetles. They're beetles, but honestly they look just like a bee when they're flying. And the larvae live in dead wood, so there's a lot of that round here because I'm surrounded by ancient woodland, which isn't managed. So if a tree falls or dies, it's just left. And these lovely beetles are the result. Apparently they're quite rare. And I've got a few roses in my garden. They're just beginning to come out. Well, normally you choose a rose for what it looks like. You know, its colour, maybe its scent, probably its scent, but how long the blooms last, how big they are, how dense they are, how good they are for flower ranging, whether they're good for drying, how good they look in a vase. But all mine are chosen for wildlife. So they're all single or double or sort of semi-double. So they all have pollen and nectar for the insects. With the exception of Gertrude Jekyll here, who I don't think is much good for wildlife, but she was a hero of mine, and so I just had to have her rose in my garden. And she was a woman of her time, so I do think that if she was alive now, I think she would advocate wild gardening. This is Phyllis Bide. It starts off these lovely sort of apricot blooms, which gradually fade to sort of pink tinged cream. So it's not a wild rose, it's a cultivar, and it's growing up the side of the shed with red campion, which is a wildflower, foxglove, which is a wildflower. And I don't know, but I think that's really pretty. I'm really pleased with that. It's the first time I've had a lot of red campion in the garden, and I'm just absolutely loving it. And most of my trees aren't native. This is a rowan, but it's not the native one, it's a cultivar. It has yellow berries, which the birds absolutely love. And here's one of those bee beetles on the flowers. These beds are all a mixture of natives and non-natives, cultivars. There's ragged robin there, red campion and astrantia. And all the native plants, the wildflowers in these borders, they will all be the larval food plant of at least one of our native insects. But like I said in one of my previous videos, I haven't actually found a caterpillar yet. So yeah, if ever I do find one, I shall be very, very pleased. And of course, the kind of flowers and plants that you have in your garden will depend on what you like and what will grow in your garden, and that will be different from mine. So there you have it. We've come to the end of another thrilling episode of my Wild Welsh Garden. So as I said, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's try and get some more wild gardeners on board, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! Hwyl fawr!